Good morning, pretties. Happy Thursday. Whoo-wee. I was really nervous before hitting go live this morning because sometimes these coffee chats are going to get really, really personal. So if you're new to Get Your Pretty On, you're here for the style tips. Just know that some days the coffee chats are going to go a whole lot deeper. And today is definitely one of those days. I think that feeling pretty and confident is a whole person thing. Style is just one of the many ways that we can express that, but there are so many other ways. And one of the things that I get asked about frequently is relationships, particularly marriage advice, which I'm always happy to give out. Craig and I do not have a perfect marriage. I don't think anybody does. But we have done a lot of work. We continue to do a lot of work. I actually asked him to join this coffee chat today, and he has a call, so he wasn't able to, but he's definitely willing to join in the future to talk about some relationship stuff and the things that we go through and what works for us and what doesn't, and just kind of get real about, some of the arguments and things that we go through. I asked him this morning if he had 2 quick tips to give for this video, what would they be? And he said, number 1 is always work on your marriage. There's always a better place that you can go with it, which I completely agree with. And number 2 is to make your spouse feel special every day. And he does an amazing job of that. I'm not so good at it, but he is really, really good at that. So I definitely want to do some combined coffee chats where he and I talk about relationship stuff. If you guys want to hear that, then, let me know. If you don't, then we'll just get back to style. But this is something I really feel like I need to talk about today. Of course, impeccable timing by the UPS guy. Anyway, this is something that I feel like there's somebody out there who needs to hear this today. And I'm hoping that it's going to get through to the right person. And if you already have a great marriage and you feel like you're in a really good place, then maybe none of this is going to apply to you. But I'd like to talk a little bit about our marriage journey and some of the struggles that we went through early on in our marriage and how we got through them and got to the place that we are today. So we have to go back 10 years ago. When we had been married, actually it's probably about closer to 12 years ago, we've been married around 7 years, and we went through a really, really rough patch in our marriage. Craig had brought in some baggage from his past. I had brought in some expectations and patterns from my past and my upbringing, and it just combined into this perfect storm where things were just really, really bad. And I think the worst part about that season is that I felt hopeless. I thought there was just absolutely no way that this was going to get better, that marriage was something to be tolerated, not something to be celebrated. We weren't enjoying each other. We weren't setting a good example for our kids. Just everything about that season of life was hard. And I resorted to things like criticizing all of the things that I wanted to see change. Like, I was super critical of everything and constantly getting on to him. And I had these unmet expectations and just wasn't sure that anything could ever be good, if I'm being quite honest. And this went on for a long time. Throughout that period, I've talked before about my faith and how this has been such a huge part of everything in my life, every piece of my journey. And I prayed a lot through that period. And we went to church one Sunday together. We continued going to church through all of this. I just felt like, that was where we needed to be, whether we were on the same page or not. And one Sunday we heard a sermon, and the pastor mentioned that they had a CD that we could pick up on the way out, and it was about marriage. So I grabbed one. And the next morning I popped it in my laptop and I listened to it. I didn't even tell Craig that I was doing this. And something changed in me in that sermon. And this was like the light bulb moment that changed everything in our marriage. And it sounds so simple, like way too simplistic probably. But the one thing that I heard in there was that I needed to never give up hope. And it just really spoke to me at that point, because I had felt so hopeless for so long, and I couldn't see any way that there was humanly any solution to what was going on between us. But that was the first time I realized that it was okay to have hope. Like this morning, I actually went back. I've told you about my 2 million word prayer journal that I keep on my computer. And I went back and read some of the entries from that time, which was actually really painful. And I relived a lot of what we went through during that time. But it was also really encouraging to see the shift and the change. And there were practical tips in there too. And even if you're not a Christian, you're not a Christ follower, these are tips that anybody can apply to their marriage, and they absolutely work. And the first of these was to focus on the 80% of what's good. And I was thinking to myself at that time, 80%, there's not 80% of good in this. So I sat down and I started listing things out. And I made a huge long list of everything that was good in our marriage, of everything that was good about Craig, instead of focusing on that critical stuff constantly. And I realized that like my top 3 values, traits, whatever, that I look for in a perfect husband, they were already there. All the rest of the stuff was just distraction that was pulling us away from the reason why we were together to begin with. Like, number 1 is that he's completely loyal to me. Like, I've never even seen him look at another woman. When we were dating, when I was only 19, I remember one day I was inside a gas station getting something while he was outside getting gas, and I saw an attractive girl walk by, and I glanced out to see if he would watch her walk by, and he didn't. And that was like one of the moments where I knew that this was the right person for me. And he has always only had eyes for me, and that is super important to me. Another thing is that he has always been willing to work on things. We've butt heads, and we're both stubborn, and we're both strong personalities. We're both type A in some regards. And so that's made it difficult for us, but we have always been willing to work on things. And, that's a huge thing for me. He's a hardworking guy, and he puts family first. Like, family always comes first. We both share this philosophy of FOE, family over everything. And I realized that just getting those things right was huge. So once I started focusing on that stuff and just completely stopped criticizing, like I stopped criticizing right then and there. I decided that that was getting us nowhere in our marriage, that I was not accomplishing one single thing by getting on to him all the time. And that allowed things to sort of calm down to the extent where it opened the doors to communication. We were able to sit down and have conversations, and we realized that we needed marriage counseling. That was the next step for us. And I'm a huge proponent for counseling. When we got into counseling, we realized that we needed individual counseling too, because if you're trying to bring 2 people who aren't whole into a marriage to try to make each other whole, which I think is what we were doing. Like, I was criticizing him because whether we realize it or not, our mates are mirrors to ourselves, and the things that we don't like about them are things we don't like about ourselves. So just working on myself and realizing that the reason I was picking him apart so much was because of my own issues was huge for me. And working through those issues in counseling brought me into the marriage as more of a healed and whole person, so that we were able to have a better marriage together. So that was huge for us to be able to do that and work on ourselves individually and get through that period of counseling. I want to say we went for probably 6 months consistently, doing our individual sessions and then coming together every few weeks to do our couples therapy. But that really helped us get on the same page. One of the other things that helped us, and this was a light bulb moment in counseling too, is that our marriage counselor said, when you're married, you should feel like a team. Like, you're on Team Lumbatis, and your goals are to, raise these kids to be happy and psychologically and physically healthy, and to, set, financial goals for yourselves, for stability or whatever you want those to be. And when I viewed us as a team and not as opponents on opposite sides, that again was something that was like a light bulb moment for me, that we are in this together. We should be united. And yeah, we still differ on things sometimes, but another thing that Craig mentioned this morning was choose your battles. We can get nitpicky. I would say our biggest issue in our marriage right now, and our kids would agree, is that we argue like brothers and sisters would sometimes, like over the stupidest things, just because we both want to be right. And I think it's important to recognize when it's okay to be wrong about something, or even if you're not wrong about something, to just shut your mouth and let it go. And that's one of the things that we still have to work on a regular basis. But, you know, I think that realizing, number one, that there's hope in your marriage, no matter where you're at right now. And if you're in an abusive situation, please know that I'm definitely not saying that you should stay, or, you know, please get help first. Please get help. That's not about ignoring what's wrong with your marriage. That's about a completely different factor. But yeah, just stopping the criticism isn't about stuffing your feelings, because I think as women, we stuff our feelings a lot. Stopping the criticism and focusing on the good is about helping the situation sort of calm down so that you can get to a good place of communication and open those doors again. And then you can address the problems. And that's really what we had to do. I had to stop expressing my unhappiness in that way and learn how to express it in a healthy, productive way where nobody feels attacked in the marriage and you feel like you're able to work on it together. And I think that was key for us. Another thing that really helped us out and continues to, you know, I have friends that come to me, and I get emails sometimes, or DMs, or, you know, other things from women who tell me they're struggling in their marriage, in their relationships, and say, oh my gosh, you guys seem like you have it all together. First off, we don't. Again, nobody has it completely together, but I feel like most days we do get it right. But just being able to sit down and communicate. Like if you're going around and, you know, complaining about your spouse, and this is for men or women alike, to anybody that's going to listen, or you're passive aggressively posting things on Facebook, or you're, I don't know, if whatever way this is manifesting for you that is not healthy, if you haven't sat down and talked to your significant other about it, then you're doing your marriage a disservice. So please carve out the time. Like you have to think about what's on the other side of that. Like, is it worth it for you to stuff your feelings in every day, to hold this resentment toward your spouse, to have it come out in all these unhealthy ways? Or would it be better just to get past the discomfort and sit down and try to have a productive conversation about it? And your partner may not be open right then and there to either A, discussing it, or B, doing anything about it, but at least you're going to open that door. And if after having these conversations, you know, maybe, and things aren't changing, then maybe you do need to get to a place where you go to a professional. And if your partner doesn't want to go to counseling with you, that's okay. You can go by yourself. There are other routes to finding the happiness that you're looking for. But staying in the same situation and doing the same thing day after day after day is not the solution. You have to actively seek it. And I think that I had gotten to this place too, where I was like praying every single day, like, God, help me fix this situation, do something about this. But I wasn't doing anything about it. I wasn't changing anything that I was doing at all. And you have to be willing to make the changes and do the things that are uncomfortable, because that's really what is going to get you to that next place. And I think that that's really significant and key in any situation that you're in. If you're unhappy, you need to look at the parts that you own first and see if there's something that you can do about it. And then, you know, make the changes and take the steps. And maybe just one little step. Like when I look back on that, like we're 10 years removed from that period in our lives now. And things are just so drastically different. But it's been a process throughout this time, and we've continued to work on it, and we've gone back to counseling when we've needed it. And it's never been as dark as those days were, but, you know, we have had to go get on the same page about certain things, like parenting, for example. We're both raised like completely differently, and bringing two parenting styles together was difficult for us. So we had to go and get a third party to help us out with that. So go find the help and focus on the good, if only for today. find the good things that you can focus on, and then start making the changes a little bit at a time. And I promise you, like, I could have never imagined or dreamed of marriage being as good as it is right now. Like, I didn't even know that existed. And I hope that we're setting that example for our kids, that marriages are supposed to be fun, and your partner should be the person that you want to do everything with and celebrate life with. And if you don't have that right now, I just want you to know that it's possible. It takes work and it takes being uncomfortable, but I think anything in life is that way. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this today. And as always, if you have any questions, I am, as you can see, an open book, and I am definitely willing to answer those for you. And let's just leave this on a light note and celebrate the fact that I just got the cutest little cat coffee mug last night at Home Goods, and I had to have it because she or he is wearing a neck scarf. All right, guys, I hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you back here tomorrow for a Q&A. So if you have any questions you want me to answer on tomorrow's Q&A, please feel free to leave them today. I'll see you soon. Bye.